Alright, so let's dive into the finale of Biased Smash stages. Here is the ultimate select screen. I will be diving into details on the brand new stages, so pause if you want to take a closer look at this image. Something I should note is in my Biased Smash, I've prioritized bringing back as many stages as possible, game per game. So not only do we have every where is here, but we've also got 9 less stages than Ultimate had at launch. The way I imagine this, I guess, working, and once again, what do I know, but with those extra resources, you can maybe have some more stage variants. At the very least, like I sort of mentioned in the last part, I would make a variant of the boxing ring stage themed around arms, ribbon ring, subtitle, arms Grand Prix, subtitles, of course, being from Melee. I would keep them going all the way through. That would be one spot, and I guess for the other 8, you could have a classic and modern interpretation of the original Smash 64 stages. So you'd have, what we actually got in Ultimate, plus stuff like you would kind of see in different mods, shifting the quality to sort of match all the other stages in the game. So I don't know, you can have the 8 starting stages as part of base game, and then maybe instead of the small battlefield update, you have an update for the secret stage later on. Our first new stage is Octo Valley, subtitle Inkopolis Outskirts. I picture this being sort of a spiritual successor to the City Trial stage I came up with, where you'll have several drop-off points and you'll have rails that you'll have a platform kind of grind or surf along. And the different locations along Octo Valley could have some of the different items from Splatoon. Like I remember the sponges and the balloons. And then you could sort of have the same effect be applied through normal fighters, through just attacking them. You can probably do some interesting things with that. And overall, I just didn't really like the layout of Murray Towers, and kind of like the idea of pulling something from the single player side instead of having to pick, one of the many different multiplayer maps they have. These stages are, of course, based off of my biased rosters, so Conquer got in. So the stage I'm going with is Poo Mtn, subtitle Windy. I was originally have the stage be Windy itself, but then the layout, I wanted to use the Spiral Mountain layout because I think it's a fun layout and I think it could kind of work with Conquer as well. But with Windy, I thought the windmill would get in the way, and then I sort of remembered this almost Spiral Mountain-ish thing they had in the Poo Mountain area. So not only that, but also Poo Mountain is the highest point. You can still see a good amount of the different areas of Windy for different references in that. So I think it would work. I don't know if there would be any issues of this being too inappropriate for good boys and girls, but I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal as long as you don't cross a line with other aspects, I guess. I don't really know how that would work with whatever ratings boards. I think this is the wiki of a fan game. I'm surprised I had a hard time sort of finding a dedicated page for the infamous desk from the intro of Smash 64, but I like the idea of it becoming playable. I almost had that as our DLC stage in Smash 4, but I wound up going with Council Floats 2, just because, I don't know, I thought about bringing back the other one, and then you had all these new councils to apply. Also, I think the Final Destination form of one of them should definitely be the Switch, since that would be the only stage missing between the two of them. But I would title this stage, I think I got this idea from Smash Custom Content, so I don't know where it originates or that, but First Destination, subtitle Secret. Yikes, you go from one extreme to another. With Smash 4, you had by far the most stages, and then in Ultimate, new stages, I should say. But we're already at the last stage for base game. Actually, I think overall Ultimate, even with all the DLC, probably still has, in general, maybe the least, aside from 64 new stages, probably around where Melee's at. But anyway, don't quote me on that either, I'm just off the top of my head. But we introduced Xenoblade 2 a little earlier, so we're gonna use the same stage. I think it was a great choice. Simple but fun layout. I would probably make the subtitle Cloud Sea of Alrest, and I would probably make the stage name Titan Gramps or Titan Azurta, whatever you would prefer. For our first DLC character, we've got Abandoned Park Ride, subtitle City Ruins. This, I imagine, taken elements similar to Spirit Train, except I would probably just go the opposite way for the vehicle overall, just to spice things up. And then obviously the platforms themselves would be different, and maybe you wouldn't have some of the different platforms coming and going, and instead have, some of the elevation changes adjust the angle of the platforms you do have, if that makes any sense. After that, you have Ring of Smash, subtitle Clashing Worlds. I went in general with a Capcom versus angle for the rep here, and so a lot of the Ring of stages coming out for Street Fighter, I believe, had different crossover stuff in them. I know this one definitely does. So I guess that's where the most inspiration will be taken from, but this would be sort of unique, its own thing, which is why I give it the title Ring of Smash, which isn't actually one that appears in Street Fighter. But same general idea, except maybe in the background, instead of statues of Mega Man and that, you might also throw in, since I went more of the fighting game route with it, statues of Morgan or someone from rival schools, Edward Falcon, etc. And this would share the layout of what would be King of Fighters Stadium, Arena, whatever the official title was. So flat, but then you have that wall gimmick where you have to, launch someone so good to actually break the wall and get a KO. So I threw in Battletoads and Double Dragon because I felt like Battletoads was a rare IP that was really missing in my biased Smash. But I'll admit I'm not super familiar with either series, so obviously most inspiration is being taken from the crossover. And I think I remember other ships. It says this ship only appears in this specific game, but I thought there was other major ships throughout at least Battletoads. So I guess stage name Ratship Rumble, subtitle Colossus. And I guess this would sort of take inspiration from the other new rare stage we have based on Spiral Mountain, but also sort of Corneria, where you'll be on the ship itself and then you'll rotate around. So almost like if you had Cornerian Venom as one stage and you just sort of rotate around, maybe you'd have a bonus one sort of at an angle or on the back, a bonus, stopper layout, but overall sort of meshing those two ideas, or three, depending on how you count Corneria and Venom together. Our final third-party stage for the first fighter pass will be Home and Farm, subtitle Mineral Town. So it'll take place on the farmland from Story of Seasons, Harvest Moon, particularly Friends of Mineral Town. The layout I'm going to borrow here, there's two layouts I kind of liked, and I thought it would be better to merge them together. The first is Find Me. So I can imagine sort of, your farmland on the lower left side that's longer, and maybe your barn or some crops or trees or something on the higher, smaller, taller structure on the right. But I don't know, I didn't really like the thing of having the me in the cage sort of swinging back and forth. So I decided to take another gimmick, particularly being from Midgar, which essentially is just a battlefield variant. So you'll occasionally have some sort of spirit. I know the harvest spirits are, a part of the series and that, so maybe them. And then you would catch them, and then they'll apply some sort of effect. Maybe they'll change the season or change up the crops. Like I can imagine, I don't know, hot peppers coming up that will do some fire damage, or maybe you can eat some fruit or something that pops up. And for the season part, maybe you'll walk slower in the fall because the falls are or the leaves are on the ground, or in the winter it'll be slippery from ice and that sort of thing. So one or the other probably, or maybe you could mix one of the ideas from each of those concepts. But that's the general direction I would go with this stage. This is another one I guess I should apologize a little bit for, just because I wanted to go with another Xenoblade rep. I felt the series seemed like it was gaining a lot of popularity and should have gotten another one for a total of 2, which is what happened as well in Real Smash. But since we already have a Xenoblade 2 stage, I kind of like the idea of pulling something from Xenosaga, which is... I've never played Xenosaga, but I guess it's... Xenoblade Chronicles is kind of a spiritual successor here. And this ship, the Durandal, sorry for the pronunciation, subtitle Kuke Foundation, is a big location in the games. And the ship is massive. Like, I think if I scroll down here, they have like whole cities and stuff set up on the ship, which I guess sort of matches sort of the Titan stuff they were doing in Xenoblade. I've only played 2 so far though, but I think at least the first game also sort of did something kind of similar from what I've seen. And this stage would take place in one of those cities, but I sort of looked through it and I didn't really see a specific name that stood out, which is why I kind of went a different direction with the naming. The layout I went with is the Mementos layout because I think it can work. I can sort of picture this being a technologically advanced area, and I could imagine them having some mechanical platforms coming in and out, like those different walls in Mementos. Is sort of the direction I went with it. To kick off Fighter Pass 2, we've got Garreg Mach Monastery, subtitle Fodlan. I would once again change the layout. Another layout I liked, or at least some of the concept that I think they may have been going for, is the Yoshi's Woolly World stage. So I would set one area, whether it be particularly the reception hall or the cathedral, and then on top you would have 4 different platforms with these symbols of the 3 houses plus the Church of Saros. And then you can stand on them, and kind of similar to what they do in Garden of Hope, except a little more central part of the stage. You would disrupt the balance, and then you would have the far left and far right pivot up and down, with the lesser outward parts also going up or down a little. And also, I wouldn't have the bottom platform ever go away like it did in Yoshi's Woolly World. I didn't like that. That's part of the shame that they didn't bring it back in Ultimate, because I could have imagined that not being part of the new hazardous toggle. Huh. I didn't even realize Puyo Tetris had a 3DS edition. But yeah, that would be our next stage. Versus Marathon, subtitle Puyo Tetris. And this would sort of bring in an element from another stage I like from Wii U that didn't return, being Jungle Hijinks. So the way I picture this one is we already had a marathon stage. So in this one, you'll have 2 marathon boards, and they'll be right next to each other too. It won't be like foreground and a background thing like it was in the Donkey Kong Country Returns stage. And then there'll be like a portal or something that can transmit you between the 2 boards, while a game of Puyo Tetris, or both, is occurring, and maybe every now and again. Like I know in some of the Tetris battle modes, there'll be power-ups, or you'll add gray blocks to the bottom, and some of that stuff would hopefully happen too. I don't know if this is really asking for a lot for a stage, though. I mean, worst case scenario, I think it would be capable of having a set predetermined puzzle going on in the background between the two different boards. And yeah, I think the Switch and that would be capable of it. Like, I know there's been custom stages that remade Jungle Hijinks just with sort of the same premise, just having a big wall between them that you can't really pass, and, you know, a portal to bring you back and forth between the two. Next up, we've got Unforgettable, subtitle Doa Tech Museum. I hope this isn't too late, 2019. I'm pretty sure this DLC would have been after that point. I guess it was seen in promotional stuff before launch too, but basically, I thought this was a really cool stage in Dead or Alive 6. That was a museum consisting of parts of past stages. So I thought we would pay our respects to the other museum stage, nearby museum from Animal Crossing, and sort of do the reverse of its layout. So rather than, I think we went clockwise, we would go counterclockwise here, and you would go through 4 different exhibits based on past Dead or Alive stages. And like I said, you'd just be panning between the different displays and going up or down a platform to get to the other floor, and just sort of a square with 4 different sections. Our final first-party stage will be Florio Island, subtitle Lenthal Region. I mentioned before, I'm not big into mainline Pokemon, but I do enjoy Pokemon Snap, and like I said, they gave us a new one, so I definitely wanted to include a stage, especially after giving Pokemon a long-awaited third rep here, I guess. But yeah, I obviously wanted to pull this for the stage. The way I picture it is that, I forget, I think it was the 0-1 from the first Pokemon Snap. Was the next one just the 0-2, the vehicle you're in? Regardless, you'll be on a platform above the vehicle you're in, and you'll just travel forwards, and then there'll obviously be, you know, Pokemon around in that, and that'll kind of be the hazard. That and just some of the land around might put out a temporary platform or area of water or lava and stuff like that. Dips in elevation, just all traveling forward, because I think backwards wouldn't work well. You wouldn't really have time to react for a platform fighter. At least I don't think so. Maybe you could find a way to make it work. I guess you can put up like a warning thing, but I don't think that's as fun. Especially, you know, seeing it coming up firsthand. Unless you pan the camera like way out, but I don't like that idea either. Not that it's even really needed anyway. I think this would be a unique layout to begin with. Next up, we've got Poetry Brainstorming, subtitle Poem Book. The last layout I really wanted to use that I haven't used yet, well, second to last, but we'll get to the other one soon enough, was Magicant. So I imagine this being a notebook with sort of lines around where Magicant's platforms are being bolded, and the ones you can actually battle on and stand on. And then in the background, you'll have the Chibi, Sayora, Natsuki, and Yuri, as well as words floating around. And then every now and again, you would have to collect words. Maybe it'll be just landing on them like it was in Midgar, or maybe it's doing so much damage to them. And I don't think you would have as many words as you actually have in Doki Doki Literature Club, but after enough words, or maybe even just a singular word, are chosen, the chibi sticker thing of that character would have some sort of effect on the stage that could match up with their personality. I'm not really sure what direction I would go specifically. Like you've probably noticed, I'm kind of more of a general concept type of person with this, but I think that could be pretty cool. And finally, we got Valhalla, subtitle Installation 00, a kind of spiritual successor to the infamous Blood Gulch, which I think itself even had its own spiritual successor. I don't know, I just, like I said, it is my bias, so I just wanted to go with the Halo 3 variant of it. That's the one I spent the most time on, is most memorable for me, and probably a decent amount of other people too. But I remember you had those bases on the different ends of the map, and I would say the stage would take place around the base, with the river and the forest-ish area and the snowy mountains in the background. And this layout would essentially use Spring Stadium, except instead of having the springs on the different platforms to help you jump higher and do damage if you run into anyone, even if you don't attack. Instead of having those spring parts, you would have gravity lifts from Halo, and similar to Spring Stadium, some would be on and off at certain points. And like I said, I like the layout, and I think it could work decently for this stage. And I think it would be an interesting way to end things, being a more new/unique idea, I guess, for that little gimmick. But that will be it for now. As I've said before, I do want to do assists as well. I don't think I'll dive into as much detail with them, but I did still have some ideas I thought I would share. And I had another bonus idea I wanted to throw in between this and the assists. Or not. I mean, the position of the two doesn't really matter, but that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. So yeah, definitely more behind us than ahead of us with this whole thing, but it's been a fun journey that's not quite over yet.